Ave Patricians, Anthony Cerise here, and this is my game, Nova Patria. Nova Patria is a simulation strategy game set in an alternate history where a steam-powered Roman Empire never fell, but instead ventured into the New World. Forge a thriving colony of economic might as a colonial governor on the brink of an early industrial revolution. Plot your path, expand horizons, and manage your burgeoning cities and resources within a dynamic, isometric, Roman steampunk world. In this video, I'll be showing you 30 minutes of uninterrupted gameplay that resulted in the colony you are seeing now. As we go along, I'll guide you through the game's mechanics, following a newly implemented tutorial. I'll also share some additional insights and thoughts on the game's development and vision. Please keep in mind that Nova Patria is currently in late alpha, so some features aren't fully implemented yet, and the art and music assets are temporary placeholders. I'll touch on these aspects later in the video. So without further ado, let's dive into the world of Nova Patria and see what it takes to build a thriving colony. As we begin the game, our first task is to establish our first city and merchant dock. This is a critical step, as the location of the city will set the foundation for your colony's future success. I'm choosing this location because of its proximity to forest and lake tiles. The first city center must be built on an ocean coast, and it also needs to have access to fresh water from a neighboring river. Access to fresh water is a requirement for all buildings in the game, including this merchant dock, which must also be built neighboring this river within the city borders of our new city. With the setup phase complete, the tutorial window is presented, covering some details I already mentioned in the intro. Throughout the first half of this gameplay video, I'll be following this tutorial and covering its key points in my commentary. I'll leave the tutorial window up so you can periodically pause and read it if you'd like. In-game, you have the option of opening and closing the tutorial with this button, where you can pick up where you left off. Let's start the simulation by unpausing time using this time control in the top right, and we can speed up time to its max speed using this button. You can now see time progress in the time control, and as soon as it hits Monday, our first shipment arrives. Every Monday, ships will import resources to our merchant docks. We can click on the merchant dock and house to bring up their respective information windows, which provides some insight into what resources and how many resources they have stored. Tier 1 houses require fish, which this merchant dock is importing from overseas. Houses will continuously consume fish and other resources, requiring consistent replenishment from imports and domestic industry to keep their fish storage full. In addition to fish, by default, new merchant docks and warehouses are set up to import lumber and cement, which are vital construction resources. Resources from your merchant dock are sent out when they're needed nearby. Watch as lumber and cement slowly cross the river to reach the housing and road construction on the other side. However, resources cannot travel unlimited distances. To see how far they can go from any building, just hover over that building to check the range. Using the heat map menu, we can select the local transport option to highlight all tiles within the traveling resource range of all merchant docks and warehouses. This view is crucial because buildings or construction sites outside this range will struggle or even fail to receive the resources they need. The heat map menu has many other options that provide more details about the map, including natural resources, construction resources, economy resources, and city networks. As mentioned earlier, all buildings require access to fresh water to be constructed and operate, so it's crucial to understand where fresh water comes from on the map. In the heat map menu, we can select the freshwater access option to see all the tiles with access to fresh water. Fresh water originates from spring tiles scattered across the map on the edge of hills. Some springs create rivers that either feed into freshwater lakes or flow into the saltwater ocean. Any tile that neighbors a spring, river, or lake has access to fresh water. We can construct new buildings by selecting them from the construction toolbar at the bottom. In addition to requiring access to fresh water, some buildings have additional specific tile requirements. These can be seen in tooltips by hovering over the options in the toolbar. These tooltips also provide additional information, including the required construction resources needed to construct the building. These new fishing docks require lake or ocean coast tiles, and once constructed, will produce fish for our growing population. Once the construction sites receive their required resources, then construction will commence, which can be viewed in the construction site's information window. With this construction now complete, we have a functioning fishing dock that produces fish at regular intervals. The fish are then delivered to houses that need it. When all houses in range are fully supplied and can't store anymore, the excess fish will be sent to the merchant dock, where fish is currently selected for storage. Initiating the construction of a building automatically creates road construction along the building's borders. We can also build additional roads using the Network tab in the construction toolbar. Once selected, simply click one vertex for the road's start point and a second one for the end point. The construction toolbar also has options for demolishing buildings, roads, and aqueducts. Fish is the simplest production chain in the game, requiring just one building to produce the final result. Other production chains are more complex, involving multiple buildings, including those that produce resources by consuming others. For instance, to produce flour later in this playthrough, we'll build farms that produce wheat, which is then fed into windmills to create flour. The most complex production chain in this game is for cigars, which requires 6 unique buildings. As our cities grow, they'll attract higher tier houses with more challenging resource demands. Here we have a Tier 2 house. In addition to consuming fish at a faster rate and having more storage space to accommodate that, Tier 2 houses also require a new economy resource, flour. Houses can come in 5 different tiers, with each tier requiring a new resource. The resources, in order, are fish, flour, smoked meat, wine, and cigars. Every city has a population level, which determines the number of houses that can exist within its borders. As we see in Markvilla, it has a population level of 4, meaning it can have up to 4 houses within its city borders. Houses will begin construction automatically within the borders of cities that can accommodate more. The number of houses constructed in a city determines how many buildings can operate there. With 4 houses, we're allowed to have 1 merchant dock and 3 fishing docks in this city. If we wanted to construct another building in the city, we need to raise the population. To do that, every house in the city must have its resource demands fully satisfied. Therefore, to grow Markvilla further, we'll need flour. However, since the city cannot accommodate any more buildings, we'll need to create a new city to produce flour. To establish a new city, we'll build a city center, making sure it's placed on a tile with access to fresh water and within range of construction resources. Since we plan to produce flour in the city, it should also be nearby tiles that neighbor rivers, which is necessary for wheat farms, and hill tiles, which are required for flour mills. In city center information panels and city labels, yellow indicates a building that is under construction, while red indicates a building that is non-operational or undersupplied. Once our newly constructed house receives fish, the bar representing the house will turn green, indicating that it is supplied and the city meets the requirements for population growth. Now that our new city has a population of 2, a second house has begun construction. 2 houses will permit the 2 buildings we need to start our flour production chain. Our city's borders have also expanded, which brings this hill tile within our city's borders for our flour mill. With a building construction selected, hovering over different tiles on the map will reveal a tooltip that outlines every reason a tile may not be valid for construction. Now we're producing a steady supply of flour, which moves to the Tier 2 house within range that needs it. With that, Mark Villa has grown to a population of 5. And our new population level has ushered in a new housing tier, Tier 3. Tier 3 houses require fish, flour, and smoked meat, a more complex production chain that requires forest tiles. We'll need to expand further into the map before we can set up that production chain. As mentioned earlier, our building and expansion possibilities are limited by access to fresh water. Fortunately, we can extend freshwater access to tiles that don't have it, using aqueducts and fountains. Let's build an aqueduct and a fountain to bring fresh water to this hilltop, where we will establish a new city. Before building anything on the outskirts of our colony, it's always a good idea to consult the local transport view and the heat map to see which areas have access to construction resources. It looks like we could use a bit more space to expand. We can increase the number of tiles with access to our resources by building a new warehouse deeper within our colony, which will extend our reach further into the map. Warehouses function similarly to merchant docks, but they can't import resources from overseas. Once constructed, automated trade networks will be established between the new warehouse and other warehouses or transport docks that are connected. I'll go into more detail about trade networks shortly, but for now, let's focus on building this aqueduct network. The start of an aqueduct must be placed at the highest elevation of a spring tile. The aqueduct can be extended up to a limited distance of 24, can never flow uphill, and cannot branch. As these aqueduct pieces are constructed, we can see that fresh water is provided to the 4 tiles at the aqueduct's endpoint. Now that the aqueduct is complete, let's establish a new city on this hilltop. Even though it doesn't look like it graphically at the moment, roads and aqueducts can occupy the same space. The goal is to communicate that visually in the final product. A few other notes on the current art assets and planned vision. During construction, instead of seeing darkened sprites that turn to full color, you'll see different stages of the building's construction. Also, the carts moving resources and trade networks won't be llamas in the final game, but instead will be horse-drawn carriages that eventually get upgraded to steam-powered horseless chariots. Our new city is now established on this hilltop. Once its first house is constructed, we'll be permitted to build a fountain at the end of the aqueduct. When connected to an aqueduct's endpoint, a fountain further extends access to fresh water, providing it to all of the tiles that neighbor the fountain. Aqueducts and fountains can be used strategically in various ways: to provide access to rare natural resources like gold, to provide access to special tile types like hills, forests, and drylands, to support the growth of large cities into massive metropolises, or to extend your reach and access other parts of the map. With our new fountain built, our new city now has more room to grow. We can rely on local resource travel to fulfill basic needs in the early game, but as our colony and economy grow more complex, we'll need to manage the transfer of larger quantities of resources over greater distances using automated trade networks. From the merchant dock and warehouse information windows, we can see all other connected merchant docks and warehouses that are linked by road, rail, or air. Linking warehouses and merchant docks to each other initiates automated trade between them. Merchant docks and warehouses have 6 distinct storage sections, 3 for imports and 3 for exports. Each of these storage sections can hold up to 50 units of the selected resource. Each merchant dock and warehouse has its own traders that prioritizes routes that allow for the largest transfer of the respective imports and exports. When imports and exports match, traders work to balance those resources across cities. At the beginning of the game, the only traders we have access to are simple horse-drawn carriages. Later, they upgrade to steam-powered horseless chariots. As the game progresses, we'll be able to establish trade routes by rail, using alternate history Roman steam trains and eventually airships. These particular features, along with several others currently displayed in the tutorial window, will be implemented in the near future. For the remainder of this video, I'll focus on discussing these planned features, with occasional minor detours to add commentary whenever something interesting happens in the gameplay. Now let's talk about finances, which is the next major feature to be implemented, completing the early game vertical slice. As a colonial governor, part of your job will be managing your denarii, the currency, and ensuring your colony remains financially stable. A major expense for the player will be the cost of imports. Additionally, it costs money to construct buildings and roads, as well as to cover upkeep costs for each city. The player's primary source of income will be taxes collected from houses in their colony. Higher tier houses pay more, and well-supplied houses also contribute more in taxes. Another way to generate income is through exports. If a resource has nowhere to go, it will be sold immediately and removed from the map. A resource will have nowhere to go if it's produced, but there aren't any production buildings that need it within range, or any warehouses or merchant docks to store it within range. However, selling resources this way only gives the player a very small percentage of the item's total value, so it's something you'll want to avoid. If the resources make their way back to the merchant dock, you'll have the option to export them at a much better price. Let's go over the planned tech tree, which functions much like the standard tech trees you'll find in games like Civilization. You can increase your tech accumulation by constructing specialized buildings throughout your colony. Unlocking new technologies provides a variety of powerful effects, including upgraded transports like rail and airships, the ability to construct 2 aqueducts per spring instead of just 1, increased range for resources to travel on their own, decreased consumption rates for citizens, enhanced production yields, expanded effectiveness of fountains and aqueducts, allowing them to supply fresh water to more tiles, increased tax rates for higher tier houses, more frequent imports and higher export prices, unlocking steel production, essential for rail and mid to late game buildings, unlocking power buildings and coal, which I'll explain in more detail momentarily, These technologies and more will help you optimize and grow your colony as you navigate your way through a rapidly advancing Roman industrial revolution. Earlier, I mentioned power buildings, which play a crucial role in boosting production in your colony. First, we have the water mill. It must be placed on a tile that neighbors a river, and it provides a modest production boost to neighboring structures that also border a river. Later in the game, we unlock the steam plant. This building offers a significant production boost to all of its neighbors, but it requires coal consumption for the boost to be active. By strategically placing these power buildings, you can dramatically enhance the productivity of your colony. Let's take a quick detour from the planned features for a moment, as something interesting is happening in the gameplay. It looks like our fish reserves are stretched thin, and as a result, our city, Felicitas, has no houses with all the resources they need. Consequently, the population is shrinking. Now that Felicitas has shrunk to a population of 1, its borders have contracted, causing buildings outside those borders to become abandoned and inoperable. In an effort to stabilize our fish supplies, I'll set our merchant dock to import only fish from overseas using these blue buttons. It will still import the other 2 resources for purposes of domestic trade networks. Since Felicitas is near a lake, it can also help boost fish production now that its borders have expanded back, and its warehouse is now operational again. Let's circle back to the final major planned feature, the missions and perks system. At the beginning of each game, players choose 3 specific nuanced goals. Achieving these goals unlocks associated perks for future games, and you can select up to 3 perks to use in each game. This system is designed to enhance replayability as you work to unlock all the perks and discover synergistic combinations. Examples of goals include hitting a certain global population before a specific date, which could unlock a perk that lowers resource requirements for your population, reaching a target number of cities with a certain population by a given time, unlocking a perk that increases tax income for higher population tiers, exporting a set amount of resources by a target date, which could grant you a perk that improves export prices for that resource. A goal that rewards self-sufficiency, achieving a certain population while importing a minimal amount of resources, which could unlock a perk that increases production yields. This system adds a new layer of meta strategy and provides a unique and fresh challenge to enhance replayability. That concludes the planned features and gameplay tutorial insights for this late alpha build of Nova Patria. There's about 10 minutes of remaining gameplay that I'll let play out, which will bring this colony's global population to 30. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate your interest and support, and I really look forward to delivering a fun and challenging game for you. For those who wish to participate in future beta testing, sign up for the mailing list on Sower Interactive's website, linked below. I also have a link to our Discord channel. You can join there and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more updates. Thanks again. Take care.